Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from RealityArtPod here to give my Week 5 player rankings based on how well I feel these players are doing in the game, recording this right after the Thursday night eviction. So spoiler warning, we'll be talking about the 5th evicted house guest here. Before I dive in, I put a link in the description so you can watch my previous recaps and rankings. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing, and thank you all so much for the support in the last few videos. Your support means a lot to me. Firstly, we say goodbye to our 5th evicted house guest, Brooklyn, who originally I had 5th place in my first impressions, rose her way up to 1st, and last week I had her in 11th. She started the week at the bottom, but her reaction to Thursday's show, being the most openly pissed of the 3 Rubina votes, instantly painted her as the target for Tucker's HOH week. She reacts by being pissed, but also adamantly denying everything, claiming that she didn't want to vote Rubina out and that T-Core and Chemo lied to her. And while there was some shred of truth in her not wanting Rubina to go home this week, it was her idea to put Rubina on the block. She continued to lie about the past when she really should have been making plans for the future. She started pitching midweek to the women that it would be better to keep her over Cam, which I think was pretty good strategy since Cam was not really campaigning, especially to the women. She was able to humble herself to admit that she was doing really bad and needed help. Eventually, she just stopped trying and on countless times was just hanging out with Chelsea, lamenting their situation. How is hanging out with the other nominee helpful? I don't know what made her so bad at this. I thought her game would be a thriller full of hee-hee moments, but now when I look back at the man in the mirror, I know that's not the case. I think her bob just grew out and took with it its powers. So let's get into the rankings. In 11th, I have Mackenzie, who last week I had in 9th. Remember how cautiously optimistic I was about Mackenzie last week? How she was primed to be in a great spot if she could realize her middle position and capitalize on it. Following voting Cedric out, she lodges herself up Brooklyn's butt and basically becomes Brooklyn's puppet for a few days, getting spun in circles until her hair got curly. And she got so confused in the game that truly every take she had on the house dynamics was just plain wrong. If you tune into her on the feeds, she's either talking about how she has no idea what's going on, or she's so confident about something that's wrong, or she's going off about how she's self-righteous and priding herself on her honesty, saying that she's in the house as long as God wills her to be. And that's something people who have no control over their position in the house say to skirt accountability for being bad at the game. She loves to lodge herself up the HOH's butt, and this week it was Tucker's butt, which made Rubina feel threatened and made the rest of the house sus of her, putting her back in a position where she's being targeted. I had her 10th, but switched it last minute because I feel like her playing the game is worse than Cam doing nothing, I fear. In 10th, I have Cam, who was 12th last week. He came into this week as one of the outliers from the previous vote, and I even tried to watch his game. He just does nothing. I can't really think of anyone who's made it this far and been such a background character. He's for real so boring and doesn't even try in the game. He ends up on the block with his allies, who could care less if he lives or dies in the game, and Tucker and the gang actively dunk on Cam, saying they don't care if he sticks around because he has no chance of winning a jury vote, and I completely agree. He has some game talks, they all go along the lines of it is what it is. I don't even know if his time is numbered, he just isn't good at this, and I don't know why he's wasting his time on this show because he could be on a show where he gets a ton of followers for his looks, but on this show, the lights are on and no one's home. I don't think he'll be evicted this week because they have no respect for him as a player, but he currently still has no win equity. In 9th, I have Leah, who was 6th last week. I liked how she got herself into the majority vote and felt like she was in a good middle spot in the game, very similar to MJ. She instantly doesn't lean into being on the right side, with them being left out of the Tanks alliance, nor do they even really try to find any unity with the people they voted with. Leah also tags along inside Tucker's keister for the week, alongside Mackenzie, and they don't even like each other. Sometimes they talk about working together. They should just work together because the house sees them as a duo anyway, and so do we. Leah's well liked in the house, but she's really hard to watch on the feeds, as she can be so self-righteous and go on tangents on how she would never act this way or that way, and it's just very snooty. She did a better job than Mackenzie of maintaining her middle position, but she's highly likely to end up on the block soon. In 8th, I have Quinn, who was 5th, who came into this week having been left out of the Cedric vote, but since he didn't have a vote, he didn't have to take accountability for it. I got a lot of smoke in the comments for having Quinn so high, but he was in a middle position, which always helps because I feel like players who aren't in direct fire have more room to run down the middle a few rounds, but for the most part, I did think he was playing better than some of these people. He ends up doing a lot of bad as usual this week, with him not accepting Tucker's deal to keep him safe during the wall comp and being pretty grumpy after losing it. Of course, he gets put back on the block by Tucker, rightfully so, since they have a rivalry, and he loses the veto competition. He should have been on the block come Thursday night, but by insane Tucker logic, he decided to save Quinn with the veto. The show made it seem like Quinn's confessions to Tucker helped, but overall, I don't really think Quinn had anything to warrant this save, and I'll talk about Tucker shortly, but he should have been on the block and potentially goes home, as I feel like right now he's kind of hanging on by a thread at the bottom of all the alliances he was in before, and now he's expendable to many, with his one saving grace being that T-Core and Chemo have him under their wing for some reason, and that's the best thing he has going for him right now. In 7th, I have Chelsea, who was 10th last week. Last ranking, I felt like she was the best of the Rubina voters, and she comes into this week riding the same train of half taking accountability, half shirking it, and denying. She avoided being an initial nominee, which some commenters felt was a testament into her social game, but Tucker wins the veto and then swaps her for Quinn, I guess to make a statement against the Rubina voters, but that move seemed really unnecessary to me. T-Core and Chemo were very upset that she was nominated, similarly to how they felt about Rubina being nominated, and coming out of this week, she's in a place where she can rebuild her game because she does have people wanting to work with her, but she needs to put in work to build those relationships up. Even coming into the eviction, it was unclear if the house would keep her over Cam, which is really not a good place since Cam isn't very well aligned at all. I lost a lot of faith in her this week, but she ended up winning the AI Arena comp, sparing her from having to face the vote, and she has allies in T-Core, Chemo, and Rubina, and has a +1 vote from Cam that could prove valuable. Because she saved herself and strapped up her social capital, she gets points from me this week. In 6th, I have Joseph, who last week I had first. He came into this week in a good spot, like others on this list, as the most middle player, and he could have rode that out by sitting quietly in the pool by himself, but he kind of makes it obvious to everyone that he's teamed up with Tucker, and I think he's put himself in a place that if they're trying to take a shot at Tucker, he'd probably be a good person to clip. And they may not want to take that shot at Tucker yet, and they might take the shot and miss, but Joseph is becoming more and more expendable to other players as the days go on. He could really benefit from an HOH week. I struggled to place him on the list, and I think he's playing better than Quinn because he still has proven to be a bit more trustworthy than Quinn and has played a cleaner game so far. In 5th, I have Tucker, who last week was 8th. He saved his boo Rubina and then 8th at wall comp. Last week, he was the house target for the collective, but through being part of saving Rubina and getting T-Core and Kibo on side, then nominating Chelsea, Cam, and Brooklyn, he pretty effectively neutralized the Pentagon contingent. He has Angela's loyalty, a final 2 with Joseph, the Tanks Alliance, and Leah and Mackenzie are obsessed with him, platonically or romantically, it's up for debate. He's risen to potential house cult leader, but his game has major flaws. For example, he saves his house nemesis Quinn with the veto. There was really no point in swapping Quinn for Chelsea on the block, other than to make a point against the Pentagon and make a good TV moment. He got so bothered about his clothes getting messed up during hide and go veto, and I'm sorry, but you're the HOH, you're the one person who can keep their things safe from things like this, and you chose not to move your clothes. He also has a giant ego and thinks he could win everything, and to an extent that means he thinks he's better than everyone else. The more he wins, the more even his friends will want him out because they want a chance to win something. Finally, I don't think he realizes that T-Core and Chemo actually don't really want to work with him, they want Rubina, and I think they would prefer a world where they have Rubina to themselves without him. In 4th, I'm putting Angela, who was 7th. I know I'm getting a comment saying Angela's too high. Make your own video. I think Angela's playing better than Tucker. Last week, she was begging to be in this alliance, and somehow she snuck into it and has continued her multi-week charm offensive, wiggling her way into the other house guests' hearts. Even Quinn said he's no longer targeting her and he thinks she's funny. She's in a good place to get to the end game, and I think we've been sleeping on Angela's win equity. At 50, she would be the oldest person to make it to the final 2 ever. She's won 2 HOHs fair and square, the first of which she used to backdoor one of the strongest people in the house, and the second one she won where if she didn't win the second HOH, the flip on Cedric never happens. She just goes home that week. Plus, there's plenty of room for her to have more accomplishments in the coming weeks. She can make it to the end, and she could win competitions and even win the game. The control that she had when Brooklyn and MJ were eating her charcuterie was impressive for her, and Brooklyn leaving is a win for Angela. So for me, she's moved up to 4th. In 3rd, I have Chemo, who was 3rd last week. He plays great second fiddle to T-Core, but I feel like more and more I see him as T-Core's assistant. He goes to her for comfort after she took him under her wing early in the game. I feel like she and the other women play mommy to him a lot. Anything I would say about his game, I'd just say again for T-Core, though he's a bit lower because, like I said, I do see him as a sidekick. I'd like to see them both do more independently or just have one without the other. In 2nd, I have Rubina, who was 4th last week. Week 4, she was on the block and was saved because T-Core and Co loved her personality and just want her to be around. I was confident that she could get into a good position, and she spends the week working on her relationships in general and just being herself, which does her really well. She got closer to Tucker, who's winning everything, and even locked that relationship down with some night vision bon chicka wah wah, which isn't strategic but helps your strategy. Ask Taylor, she'll agree. She's in 5 points and really benefits from Tucker and Joseph being seen as a strategic pair because she's no longer the person that people are going to come for to take a shot at Tucker. If you want to hurt Tucker indirectly, you take out Joseph. Rubina's in a place where she can hide behind her showmans, and once he's evicted, she could turn it up and get into the Jordan or Rachel position in the game. I could see it. Toward the end of this week, she decided that she was going to wake up and start playing the game, but then ended up spilling the beans to Tucker about the potential vote flip. I don't think exposing that to him would hurt her game, but it does give me fear that her head isn't really in the game, and she may end up making some bad decisions based on her feelings for Tucker, but for now, she's in a great spot. Finally, in 1st, I have T-Core, who was 2nd last week. I've been wanting to put her here for a bit, and I'm not just doing it to do it. I feel like this week, T-Core really started acting like she was running the game. She got a taste of control last week, and I think she liked it. She and Chemo joined up with Tucker and had a pretty easy week, letting him do his thing and waiting until nominations were locked in to start stirring the pot. When Chelsea was nominated, she was not happy with it. She started making sure she had the votes to keep Chelsea, but she didn't overplay play and didn't try to save Brooklyn, by working to secure the votes for Chelsea, she'll get all the loyalty from Chelsea and probably also Cam without actually having to make the move. So she pretty much did make the move. Chef's kiss. So far, nobody I've put as number 1 has stayed number 1, and nobody's been it twice. We'll see how that holds up. So that's it. Those are my rankings for week 5. I'd love it if you'd leave your rankings in the comments. I like reading them throughout the week and joining in the conversation. I'll be back on Wednesday to talk about the Challenge 40 and Thursday with 2 more Big Brother videos. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. Until then, have a nice weekend. Bye.